Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Concrete Note. My name is Dr. John Belkowitz, and it's a privilege, nay, a pleasure to bring you Luai Kurdi, the CEO and founder of Print 4D, for an awesome interview. Luai, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Jonathan. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Awesome. Now, before I get into, the questions that we talked about earlier, and so our listeners know, I gave Luai a basic rundown of the questions, but he has yet to know what I'm going to ask him. So this is going to be a little bit of a surprise. The impetus of this chat is the future of 3D printing with concrete throughout the world, as well as off planet too. Is that a fair assessment, Luai?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so your intro, you're the CEO and founder of Print 4D, which is in Prague, right?
Yeah, it's true. Prague, Czech Republic.
That is so awesome. Before that, you worked for Besics 3D in Dubai.
Yes, that's true. That lasted for about 2 years and a half.
And I tell you, that's where I first started seeing your work. And from there, it's just some of the work that you were doing or posting is art. It's not just structures, and I'm going to get into that. But the reason why I bring that up is before 3D printing, I mean, your expertise, your trade is architecture.
Yep, that's true. I originally graduated as an architect, and I did specialize during my master's in advanced design digital fabrication, where I pursued eventually digital fabrication methods, and one of them happens to be 3D concrete printing or 3D printing.
And where did you go to school again?
So I graduated from German Jordanian University. It's located in Jordan, back my home country. And I did my master's degree in Barcelona, Spain.
You are a world traveler. And
kind of, and that's just the beginning. That's only 2 of the countries that I've lived in. Just to give you a quick piece of info, for the past 10 years, I lived in 7 different countries.
That's so awesome. Oh, I'm so impressed. Wow. Can you list them off alphabetically?
Alphabetically, no, but chronologically, yes.
Yeah, let me hear.
Well, I lived in, now I'm living in Prague. Before that, I lived in Dubai. Before Dubai, I was living in Slovakia. Before Slovakia, I was living in Doha, Qatar. Before that, I was living in Barcelona, Spain. Before that, I was living in Germany. And before Germany, I was living back home in Jordan. So quite a few places here and there.
And as much as I seem excited about the fact that you've lived all over the world, what that tells me is that you understand the nuances of cultures. Different cultures, working with them, and might not be always in architecture, but I'm sure a large majority of that is in architecture and the advancement of architecture. But that obviously is going to have a major impact on the way you run your company and who you go after to get that market adoption saturation. Wow, this is glad we did this interview. This is going to be fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into my first question. I'm going to ask the question, and I've got some notes.
Sure.
The question is, how did you get into 3D printing with concrete? And the notes I've got is, when I say, how did you get into 3D printing with concrete? You obviously have a love of the material. There's a video of a time lapse that you did. I think it's of the guardhouse. And I slowed it down, and you can see that you had to put the reinforcement on, I think, at certain points.
Yeah,
but you're also out the lifts, right? And you're looking at it seems like you're looking at the beads. So you obviously have a love of the material, a love that is akin to mine or somebody else who enjoys what they do.
Yeah.
But it's not just that, it's you're inventive on how you display the duality of structure and aesthetics. And I think we're going to try to make a video out of this, because I want Patchouli to show, if it's okay with you, some of the pictures of the woven wall, the
Yeah.
house. I mean, a lot of the structures that you've made over time are just so. Back to
Thank
the question: how did you get into 3D printing with concrete?
Yeah, well, thanks a lot for your kind words, of course. I do have a passion for what I do, and that's part of, me being or trying to be inventive as much as I can, and trying to take, all of my knowledge to the next level and try to do something new with it, of course. How I got into 3D concrete printing is, as I've mentioned before, I am an architect as a base, and being an architect, I always had a passion for parametric design and digital fabrication. It's just something that I personally like to do, is explore digital fabrication methods and how we can integrate it into the architectural world, and kind of try to use the technologies and the tools available at hand to be creative in architecture. So with digital fabrication, I was doing different types of digital fabrication: CNC, robotics, and 3D printing was one of them. So I was mainly working with 3D plastic printing, on the desktop machines. And I've also had the chance, while I was studying in Barcelona, to take a look at some of the 3D printing with earth material that was happening in Barcelona in one of the universities. And that kind of sparked an interest for me on, like, combining 3D printing, digital fabrication tool methods, and concrete as the main material that we use to build in the Middle East, for example, because concrete is the main building material in the Middle East and in the Gulf area. And it just happened that there was an opportunity at B6 where they wanted to explore 3D concrete printing, and they needed an expert to come and help them out, establish the facility and start printing and exploring different applications. And that was the moment basically where I moved to Dubai, and for the next 2.5 years I was developing the technology and working on different applications, and just trying to take it to the next level.
Amen. You are, and what I like about how you said that is it leads up to my next question, which is perfect. I'm impressed with the type of structures that you print. It seems like you're reimagining and reshaping the standard flat facade. I mean, what you see behind me, that flat wall, who would think to change that up? And when you look at the guardhouse, and again, the guardhouse, I refer to that because you don't have to go searching, and this is for our listeners, you don't have to go searching for it. If you go to Luai's main LinkedIn page, it is the last post that you did. I think it's a time-lapse video. But then if you go just a little bit further, you see the woven wall and what was the other wall? Not the
Stem
structured
wall.
wall.
The stem wall.
Which one?
Stem
Stem wall.
wall. Yes.
Yeah, you have reimagined, reshaped, even when you compare yourself to the competitors in your landscape. Like most of them are still doing flat walls.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
have, I don't know if you've noticed that, but for me, that was the thing that drew me to a lot of your posts. And what do you see is the future of these 3D printing techniques? Are we
Yeah.
going to still stay with the blank facade, or are we going to go in your direction, which is it's awesome?
Thank you so much. Thank you again so much for the nice words. I mean, I really appreciate it. And it is true, when I first started working with this technology, I and especially my background connected to design and architecture, it was a no-brainer for me to try to be innovative in the way that we are building these structures. And as you said, we see today a lot of the other players that are printing with concrete, they're still printing flat walls and really not tapping into the potential of the technology. So I felt it as a responsibility for me, but not only a responsibility, it's also a passion. And part of my design thinking and design imagination is to utilize the technology to produce new aesthetically, structures that we will be living with on a daily basis. Because as you mentioned, you have a flat wall behind you, and so do I. And honestly, that we spend how many hours of our lives sitting inside rooms, and these rooms are not really designed in a way to kind of appeal to ourselves, and to kind of make us feel like we're living in a special place. So part of my responsibility is to kind of reimagine those very traditional ways of building walls and designing walls, and also to use this technology in a new way. If we're still using this technology to build traditional structures that we were used to, like for me, there's no real point. If there's a new technology, I want to use it to be innovative and to produce new forms and geometries and designs. So that's it for me.
And you're doing it. If you ever wondered, am I hitting the bullseye? You done it.
Thank you, thank
And
you. That's great to
one,
hear.
oh yeah, well, it's great to see too. And one of the things that I noticed about your your designs, and it goes back to a saying that my uncle Richard is a British bricklayer. He's been laying bricks since he was 13 or 14 years old. He's in his late 70s now, so he's got a lot of sayings.
Mhm,
And I remember when he built this facility for us, he used texture on the walls,
mhm.
and I cannot stand texture. And he did it without me knowing it. And I asked him, Uncle Richard, why? Why are you using texture? And he said, Jonathan, texture covers a manner of all sins. And he's right. If somebody messes up on the wall, you throw a little texture on it and you can't see it.
True.
What I like about board design is it's very hard to pick out um, some of the tears. Uh, sometimes when a layer is a little bit too fluid when it comes out of the nozzle, doesn't set up as quickly and it falls down a little bit. So one of the comments that I made years ago, I don't know if it was years ago, on your post was that there were breaks and inconsistencies in some of the beads and some of the lifts. And I know it was from an earlier post and I couldn't find it today. And I know in that post I admitted that I was being picky.
Mhm.
And please bear in mind, I take this field a little too seriously, especially since it can have a major positive impact on our construction and concrete arenas.
Yep.
So I was picky and even said to you it was an awesome print. But in light of my pickiness, can you comment on the unfortunate reality of the inconsistencies that we get with 3D printing, assuming that some of these inconsistencies are flaws in a perfect tapestry?
Mhm.
Or will we be able to overcome those tears, those inconsistencies with new technology and new practices? So do we
Yeah.
have to deal with it, or are we going to be able to get over that?
Yes, it's a very good question, and quite remember the comment actually. Now that you bring it, and of course, I understand where your passion comes from, and I really respect that passion that you have for the material, for the technology, and for all of that. Um, so to answer your question, as the technology is growing now, we will reach a certain moment where we will reach so to say, the perfection of the layers, printed layers, and we will be able to completely remove those tears and imperfections of the printed concrete. But you know what? Just to bring another aspect of this process is that we printed back at B6. Printed, maybe you've seen it, one of the projects, a full facade for two of the office buildings back in Dubai. And those facade panels, each building had around 330 printed facade panels. Those facade panels were flat panels by design, just because the project had that already implemented into the design. So it had all flat panels. And those imperfections played a really big role into making that flat surface something quite unique, interesting, and quite attractive. So for that, flat panels, if we had perfect straight layers, I do not think it would have looked like aesthetically pleasing as it did look like with the imperfections, because those imperfections kind of bring the natural aspect of the process and the material. It kind of, what I mean. So it kind of had played a positive roles in some projects, but on the other hand, where you do not have flat surfaces, it kind of plays a negative role. So it is quite necessary to develop it into reaching those perfect lines at the end of the day.
I know what you mean. There is a paper, I think it was either done at Penn State or by the folks at NIST in Gaithersburg, Maryland, but they show the progression of a mix being printed that goes from a very wet mix to a very dry mix, or I should say from a very wet mix to a very dry mix. And as it becomes drier, it starts getting that break in links of the bead of the extrusion, and it almost looks like it was done on purpose.
Yes.
It almost looks like of art. So I could see how the imperfections can be used to bring depth. And if you worked with an artist and designed it right with the input, your drawing that you input, and changing up the mix, you could create a facade that has some type of shape in it based off of the breaks and the drawing out of the concrete. That would be something fun to do. It's tough but fun. So with all of this, it all goes back to this. A lot of the times I have to ask a very basic question. It's a very easy question. Why should the ready mix industry care? Right? And
Yeah.
and before you get into it, in my opinion, the ready mix industry should care for many reasons about 3D printing with concrete. Whether it's 3D or the labor shortage. When it comes to the labor shortage, there was a print done in Dubai, and I cannot remember whether it was, I can't remember who did the print, but it was a multi-story, and it was taking place at night. And one of the guys, there's only one guy, it seemed like there was only one guy on the job site, and he was sitting on scaffolding reading a book, right?
I remember that. I remember that video. Yeah.
That right there, that should sell every contractor in the world. So out of the topics in the industry that are going to be disruptive and make a difference, the three that I know of are CO2 reduction, thanks to Bill Gates and this whole push, the death of Class F fly ash, and then finally pressing a button and in 24 hours you have a house. And that one obviously speaks to you. So here are my top 3 questions that I get.
Yeah.
And I'll say them slower, but let me go through them real quick. This is all from market adoption. What are the current obstacles to market adoption tomorrow? How will 3D printing change the custom home builder, subdivision builders, folks like my Uncle Richard, who builds somewhere around 15 houses a year, and he uses all subcontractors? How is this going to change how he does things? And the third question is, what will the what will the contractor of the future look like?
Well, very good questions. And I hope I managed to remember all of them. Let me start with the first one. The first one was the biggest obstacles to the technology, right? Um, for me, today, one of the biggest obstacles is obviously the scalability of the technology. All of the current equipment that are available on the market or being developed are all suited for, small scale buildings. Let's say it could be 2 or 3 family house buildings. But if we want to go into larger structures, there is still an obstacle in terms of the scalability of this technology and how large we can go bigger. And to comment on to comment on the part where you mentioned why the ready mix companies should care. As you mentioned, the reduction in the carbon footprint is obviously one of the hugest points for me and should be on the mind of other companies as well. With 3D concrete printing, you are able to reduce the amount of concrete used to build or used to fill the same volume of structure. So instead of casting your mold with 100% of concrete that is not really being used fully as a structural element, you are able with 3D concrete printing, and by designing it the right way, you are able to lay down the concrete only where you need it structurally. So that's also reducing the amount of concrete that is used, and obviously it plays back into the carbon footprint, because when you need less concrete overall for a project, you're reducing the amount of carbon that has been used to produce that concrete, and so on. And the other obstacle that I would say is today, there's a lot of local building codes and regulations that have not caught up to the technology. So in many cases, there's a lot of interest by companies and construction companies and contractors and so on to build using this technology, but still they are always faced with this kind of dilemma of how do we get the permit for it. Still, our local municipalities have not looked at this topic and so on. So that is the one other point. And the third and also important point for me is that the designers and architects do not fully comprehend the potential of this technology. So they're not using it to the optimal use case that is possible. So it's gonna take some time when all of that kind of balances out and all of the knowledge kind of makes its way to the designers and architects. They understand better what this technology, how we can use it to construct better. And jumping to the second question, I already forgot the second question. Maybe you can
How
help
will
me.
how will this change the industry? And you've already started down
Yeah,
that road about how it's going to change the way we build things, not only the carbon footprint, how we use materials, where we use materials,
yeah,
but also going back to that earlier with the woven wall or the stemmed wall, it's
yeah,
also the look of our
yes,
buildings.
yes.
So that was the question. How will it change? How will 3D printing change the industry?
It's a very big it's a big topic to discuss, but I'll try to maybe just touch points on what I think is important. One of the important things, now that you mentioned it, on the look and aesthetic of the built environment. We've been used to building boxy buildings like since hundreds and thousands of years. We're sitting in these rooms with flat white walls. We as humans, also as part of being an architect, that is something that always intrigues me. We as humans, we have uh, an emotional experience with the built environment, with the spaces that we live in. So that is something that I think that has not been really improved for us as human beings, to kind of elevate the kind of emotional response that we get from interacting with the buildings around us, interacting with the built environment, interacting with the concrete walls, with the pavement, with everything around us. So I think that is one of the biggest things that will change, and maybe it's not so evident, but it will have a definitely a positive impact on us as humans and how we feel, health wise, emotional wise, all of those things. Um, from the second point of view, from the industry point of view, how it, these 3D concrete printing machines, they do not get sick, they do not need to take breaks, they don't break down that often. So the productivity will increase. We all know the shortages of homes and the home shortage crisis around the world, and the lack of labor, highly skilled labor in certain regions of the world. So with 3D concrete printing, you are delivering that solution where you can print efficiently, and also skillfully. So, and also accurately, if I might add, because a lot of problems in construction site is the errors that labor workers do, and it ends up costing, to time and materials and waste, and kind of redoing part of the works and so on. But with 3D concrete printing, that doesn't often happen, because the digital model that you design on the computer is what you get at the end. And we also get rid of the paperwork that is typically produced and handed out to the contractors, the workers, the engineers, and so on. And
too,
sorry,
and interpreted by them too.
exactly.
You're interpret it the right way. Go on.
Yes, true. So we get rid of that human error that causes different kind of problems on job sites. I think, and the third question, I would also need your help to remember what it was.
What will the contractor of the future look like? Will it be my Uncle Richard who has his Dodge Ram 2500 and he shows up to the job site with all his tools and he's waiting for his subcontractors, or will it be something different?
I think it will be something different. I think, as we start to kind of adapt, or as the technology starts to be more available, and the mass adoption curve is kind of catching up, I think people will be more using this technology in the job sites. But how it will change is that we will be more efficient into the way that we deliver our projects. So the time frame for each project will be reduced. We will be able to allocate workforce in different parts of the project where it's more needed than laying bricks, for example, or casting concrete walls. And we will be able to focus more on getting the job done faster, more efficient. Like, mind you, 3D concrete printing is only concerned with the walls, and maybe in the future with floors and roofs. But all of the electrical, all of the plumbing, it still needs to be done traditionally, and that will not change for many years to come, because to involve a robotic kind of machine to lay down all of that is very far-fetched, and I think it will take tens of years at least.
Yes, but remember, it was just in the 1950s when atomic sprays created 3D printed structures in science fiction magazines. So 60 plus years ago, what you are doing was science fiction. So I understand that right now we're saying it's many years, but that's with current technology. It
Mhm.
might be next week. Who knows what they're doing at Dartmouth and MIT?
True.
Those folks got awesome projects. So with that, you obviously have a love. You obviously see the future of this in a different way. What is your targeted approach? Who are you guys going after in the industry to make change and to bring this technology to the forefront?
Yeah, well, we're doing our best to get in touch with, the construction companies. Also, one of the main things is to spread the knowledge and the awareness of the potential of this technology. So it comes down to, construction companies to show them a new way how to build, and also the architects and the designers to kind of, spread the knowledge and basically show them that there's also new possibilities in design, and that we should pursue and should start looking into better ways to design and build our buildings and built environment.
You know, I got to tell you, Luai, there is a definite future for this. We get to go out to job sites all the time. We work with subdivisions, home builders here in the Western U.S. Was it like 3 weeks ago? I was on a job site and I asked one of our clients, how's it going? He's like, well, we built 1,500 homes last year. I was like, that's great. And he goes, nah, man. I said, no. He goes, no, we've got too much work. He said, I got my guys working 60 to 70 hours a week and I'm breaking their backs, and there's more homes that we have to build. I don't have enough people, and the people that I have, I'm breaking them. Like, we have an ever-growing population. There are some reports saying that our growth has decreased a little bit, but the truth be told, that 7.7 plus billion people, we're going to need more infrastructure. We're going to need more homes. It's just the inevitable reality of where we're going, and what you're working on is the future reimagined. Press a button, 24 hours later, you have a house. Like, that is the future. And I really want to thank you for taking the time. I know you're a busy guy starting a new company. It's awesome starting a new company, isn't it?
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Little bit scary, maybe a lot of bit scary, a little bit awesome sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, definitely. No, definitely. It's terrifying. Especially for me, it's the first company that I established. It's terrifying. It's exciting at the same time, and the only way to do it is to go for it. From my point of view, so. No, I'm happy that I have a vision. I have certain goals that I would like to achieve with the technology, and I'm trying to do that. So let's see how it turns out.
Amen. Luai, I tell you something, you are doing an amazing job, and we're going to keep tabs on Print 4D and how y'all do in the future.
Thank
You very much for joining me today. And for our listeners out there, our subscribers, check out Print 4D and the amazing structures that they're making to revolutionize our concrete and construction industry. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Go concrete, beat asphalt.